What is the best smartphone gimbal for you? I have 4 of the latest 3-axis smartphone gimbals, including the DJI Osmo Mobile 7 and 7P, the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro, and the Hohem iSteady V3. All of these gimbals were released in late 2024 or in early 2025, and in this video, I'm going to evaluate them on 13 key points to figure out which one might be the best for you. There are product links and individual review videos in the description below in case you want to know how older models, such as the DJI OM7 and the original Insta360 Flow, compare to these newer versions. Also, quick disclosure. All of these brands did send me these gimbals to test out, but they did not pay me to say anything, and they're not reviewing this video before publishing. So these are my honest opinions about these gimbals. Now, if you don't know what a gimbal is, it's a stabilizer that helps you get steady footage with a camera. But there are more reasons than that to use one, like for shooting in low light, taking motion time lapses, or autofocus or AI tracking. I have a separate video going over why you might need a smartphone gimbal in the first place, so check that video out in the description below if you want to know more. But before I go over all of the differences of these gimbals, let's start with their common features. All of these are 3-axis phone stabilizers. They came out within a few months of each other, and they're all foldable, so they're pretty lightweight. The Hohem is the heaviest, weighing in at 420 grams, followed by the DJI OM7P at 368 grams, the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro at 357 grams, and the DJI OM7 at 300 grams. There are other smartphone gimbals out there like the Hohem iSteady M7 and the Juin Smooth 5S, but they are much larger and heavier, weighing in at over 600 grams, and they're not foldable. However, the benefit of a larger gimbal is that it can support more weight. All 4 of these small gimbals can support phones up to 300 grams, while the Hohem M7 has a payload of 500 grams. Now, as a frame of reference, the iPhone 16 Pro is 199 grams, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max is 227 grams. But if you have a bigger, heavier phone than that, then you might need a larger gimbal like the M7. But this video is about the smaller gimbals, so let's get back to comparing them. All of these gimbals have a built-in 1/4-20 hole in the bottom for attaching an optional extension pole, which you have to provide by yourself. But you can also use the built-in mini tripod that comes on every gimbal. This is a welcome improvement for the DJI gimbal in particular because the older OM6 did not have this. Now, looking at the built-in tripod quality, there are some pretty big differences. The Hohem tripod is very skinny, and it's not the most stable or comfortable if you want to use it as an extension handle, which is something that I often do with my gimbals. The DJI OM7 and 7P have the same built-in tripod that is rather short, and it's also not super comfortable to handhold. I'm also not a fan of how you have to line up all 3 legs of the tripod to insert them in all at once, rather than push them in individually. Ugh, pinched my hand so hard. Just trying to push those little built-in tripod in. Owie, that hurt. Meanwhile, you can individually push in and pull out each leg on the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro's built-in tripod. It's also been redesigned and improved compared to the original Insta360 Flow gimbal. And in my opinion, the Flow 2 Pro has the sturdiest and most comfortable built-in tripod of them all. Now, all of these gimbals except for one have an extending center column, so you can use them like selfie sticks. Only the DJI OM7 is missing this extendable center column, but it does come with the OM7P. Now, when they're unfolded, all of these gimbals have pretty much the same form factor, and thus they have pretty similar ranges of motion. But only the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro has this so-called free tilt mode. So one thing I really dislike about a lot of gimbals is that if I want to do like this tilt shot, where I'm panning up and down and showing a subject off, it's really hard to do with the way that the gimbal is built. But the nice thing about the Flow 2 Pro is that it has this new free tilt mode, which allows you to get better up and down pans of a subject. So I can partially extend the gimbal here, I don't have to fully extend it, and I use that new tilt function to slightly tilt it. So now I'm in free tilt mode. So if I want to do this up and down pan of a subject, I'm able to do so a little more freely. I don't have that physical restriction of the gimbal anymore. The Flow 2 Pro is also the only gimbal here that allows for 360-degree infinite panning, which is helpful not only for manually making the gimbal pan, but also while subject tracking, because the subject can walk a full circle around the gimbal and never be lost, while the other gimbal brands out here always run into a limitation. Now in terms of overall stability, here's how it looks when doing a soft walk, a hard walk, and a run with all of these gimbals. Now besides being lightweight, another advantage to these smaller gimbals is that they are very quick and easy to deploy. Both the DJI and the Insta360 gimbals have metal phone clamps that clip around your smartphone and then attach to the gimbal magnetically. Both brands also offer optional magnetic mounts for MagSafe phones. The Hohem is the only gimbal here with a phone attachment that is built in and is not removable, which could actually be a good thing because you can't accidentally misplace it like you can with the Insta and DJI gimbals. Now in terms of ease of use, the Insta360 and DJI gimbals both can automatically turn on when they're unfolded, so you can begin shooting right away, while the Hohem does not have this feature. The physical button layout of the DJI and the Hohem are pretty straightforward and easy to figure out. On the other hand, the Flow 2 Pro's design is visually the sleekest and most modern looking, but there is a bit of a catch in that I find that there's a steeper learning curve to figure out how to use it because there are so few buttons and not much of an interface to confirm, say, what gimbal mode that you're in. Granted, I think that these gimbals are assuming that you're going to be shooting on their accompanying phone apps, so you can see and change your settings on the phone app. But I still like to have an intuitive physical control on my gimbal. Now speaking of, all of these gimbals have joysticks to fine-tune the movements like panning and tilting. The Flow 2 Pro has a slightly recessed joystick that makes it a little hard to handle, versus the DJI and the Hohem joysticks that are more prominent and easier to control. Now, if you want to control the gimbals from afar, you can do so via gesture controls and also remote controls. So all of these gimbals have accompanying smartphone apps that allow for gesture controls to do things like start and stop recording or start and stop tracking a subject, which is really helpful if you're filming yourself. But they also have other remote control options. Now the Hohem is the only gimbal here that has a detachable remote control, which you can take up to 10 meters away and do things like change the settings and use the joystick. However, if you misplace this remote control, you also lose the buttons and the main controls of the gimbal, so a bit of a toss-up there. For the Flow 2 Pro and the DJI OM7s, all of these gimbals do not have detachable remotes, but you can use your Apple Watch to control them. Now, I don't think any other smartphone watches are compatible at the moment, but the Apple Watch connection is super easy to set up. And you can use it to not only control the gimbal, but also get a live preview of your shot and look at the footage that you've captured. Now in practice, I found my Apple Watch connection to be pretty laggy when using it with the Flow 2 Pro. But it was very responsive and overall better integrated with the DJI OM7 and 7P. And by the way, this feature also does work with the older DJI OM6 gimbal. But the Flow 2 Pro has one other way to remote control the gimbal, which is by using another phone to scan a QR code within the Insta360 phone app. Now this is really handy if you don't own an Apple Watch, because it does work with iPhones and Androids. And it also does not require that device that's scanning the QR code to download the Insta360 app. It simply generates a remote control within a browser. Now, even though you can use tools like the remote control to manually control the gimbals, all of these gimbals also have subject tracking that can automatically follow a subject around. Now, the quality of the subject tracking varies, and I will talk about that in the next section, but first let's go over how that works with all these gimbals. All of these gimbals allow you to do tracking when using their accompanying phone apps, and it's as simple as drawing a box around a subject, or using the gesture controls, and the gimbal will start moving around to follow the subject. You can also use these gimbals to track a subject even when you're not using the accompanying smartphone app. All of these gimbals except for the DJI OM7 also come with a physical tracking module, which attaches to the smartphone clamp and then allows you to use the gimbal's tracking when using third-party apps like your native camera app. This tracking mod is actually brand new for the Flow 2 Pro. It just came out a few days ago, and it also includes a built-in fill light. For the DJI, the tracking module is compatible with both the OM7 and the 7P, but it must be purchased separately with the OM7 while it's automatically included with the 7P. Now, the Flow 2 Pro also has another trick up its sleeve that the others don't: Apple DocKit connection. So like its name implies, this only works with Apple phones, but it allows you to connect an iPhone to the gimbal via NFC connection. And then you can use the gimbal subject tracking feature on over 200 compatible iOS apps. I use it the most with my native iPhone camera app, and while tracking is a bit slower compared to using it on the Insta360 app, it is still very accurate. Now that I've gone over how to activate the AI tracking on the gimbals, let's talk about how good the trackers are. So our first test here is with the Hohem gimbal. So I'm going to try to select two of us. Nope, it only wants to focus on one person. So as one person moves around, and if I hide, oh, now it got you.
Oh, it switched when you
Yep, it switched. Let's try that again. Oh, now it's on you.
Maybe hide behind you.
Yeah, now hide behind me. Oh, now I'm back. Okay, so this one really wants to just focus on one person only. All right, so the last test was with the Hohem app, using that to track. But now we're going to try out the physical tracker that's on top of the smartphone clamp. So let's see how that goes. So if it tracks just a face, oh, now it got you. So now you're the spotlight. Oh, still you. It really likes you. Oh, now it's on me.
Stole it.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back and forth depending on, I don't even know what the parameter is exactly. Let's see how far away we can get. Still got me?
No.
Nope. Now got you. Okay. But since we have that tracker, we're able to use that tracking in other apps, such as the native iPhone app right now. So I'm gonna have to use gesture controls. So I went ahead and did that. So now with that physical tracker, it'll continue to track me if I use the gesture controls. Oh, but now it lost me. Now it's not doing anybody. So if you do the okay side, there we go. Now it'll track me. Oh, it lost me already. There we go. Okay, now we're testing out the new DJI OM7, shooting within the DJI Mimo app once again. So let's go ahead and try to select two of us. And once again, it wants to focus on just one person. Hey, it still got me.
Even when I throw it.
Yeah. Yep, doing pretty well. If I hide behind this bush here, and I come back, still got me. All right, so now we're going to track out the multi-person tracking in the DJI OM7. So for this one, you do want to make sure that you have smart capture enabled, which we do. And so now you notice that there's two people, there's gray boxes around both of our faces. So right now I can select myself as the primary by tapping that green icon. So now it's going to follow me around. But if we want to stop tracking me and track someone else instead, we can tap on Martin instead. And now it's going to track him. So the nice thing about the DJI OM7s, both of them, is that there's an optional multifunctional mod that it can come with. It comes automatically with the 7P, but does not come with the 7. You have to buy it separately. But with that 7, or with the multifunctional mod, you can put it on the bottom of the smartphone clamp, and now you can get that gesture control plus that auto tracking in any app, such as the native iPhone app, which is what we're shooting with right now. And it has already decided to track me here. It has the same level of tracking where it locks onto a specific face. Even if I hide, even if I go behind another person, that module is still tracking me. All right, so we're filming within the Insta360 phone app on the Flow 2 Pro gimbal. So this gimbal, as opposed to the other ones here, is one of the only ones that I know of that has pretty good multi-person tracking. So if I draw a box around two people, it will do its best to keep us both in the frame. It does choose one person to be the primary subject that it's going to focus on, but you can see that it's trying its best to keep us both in the shot. It's not kind of zeroing in on me and making me the primary target. But if I do exit the frame and come back in, it does catch me again.
Yeah, the main difference is that it no longer keeps you centered. When there's two of us, it will space us out. Like if you move left now, yeah, see, we can both be this far apart. So
and then at some point, if you break that barrier though, it does start to be like, oh, I don't know where to go. So it prefers if you're closer together or within its ranges, or within its limitations. If we do single person tracking, here's what this looks like. It again is pretty good at keeping on one person. It doesn't get confused and try to lock on another person. And if I hide, it's able to find me again. Using basic subject tracking, the Hohem gimbal was the least accurate. It often lost me when I turned my back on it or got too far away, and it really was not great at recognizing me again after it lost me. Meanwhile, the DJI and the Insta360 gimbals were phenomenal at tracking me, even when I turned my face away or hid behind an object. And once I reappeared, both gimbals found me and started tracking me again. However, of these two gimbals, only the Flow 2 Pro had a full 360-degree range of motion and could follow me as I made a full circle around it, while the DJI and even the Hohem eventually ran into a limitation. Of these gimbals, only the Flow 2 Pro has a robust set of tracking modes, which are all quite helpful. The first is Pro Framing Grid. So you might notice that by default, if you selected a subject, that the gimbal and the camera app will attempt to keep that subject in the center of the frame. But sometimes you may not want that. Maybe you want to be, focused in a different part of the frame. So for that, you can now select Pro Framing Grid. And now, this is the default, but if I want the subject off to, the far upper corner like that, I could select that, or even lower it a bit. I can go in the other quadrant here. So you can see that it's really helpful for helping to reframe. And so now, if I'm moving around, the camera app is trying to keep me in that quadrant that I've selected, rather than keeping me directly in the center. There's also active zoom tracking and auto zoom, which can work together to maintain the same amount of crop on a subject, even as that subject moves farther away or closer to the camera. So another nice feature about the Insta360 gimbal is that you can have this so-called active zoom tracking and auto zoom. So it only works with the back-facing camera. Like before this, we were using the front-facing camera to film. For this one, you do have to be back-facing. But now, if I do auto zoom, see how it's zooming into Martin's face and trying to keep that same crop even as he's walking away from the camera. And if he starts moving around, it's able to track him. Now that he's coming closer, and again is smoothly zooming out and keeping the same zoom proportion on his face. Okay, so this mode can be used in conjunction with active zoom tracking. So now we can significantly improve tracking performance, it says, even when we're zoomed in. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're auto zooming, and now he's also going to move around pretty quickly. So let's see if it can track him as he's going side to side. Maybe try going back and forth a bit. Let's see how it goes. I mean, like a shorter distance. Yeah.
Can't lose it anymore.
No, it's got you. Now, I mentioned earlier that the accompanying gimbal mods had multiple uses besides subject tracking. These mods can also work as fill lights, so you can add a pop of light in a dark environment. Let's go ahead and do a fill light test, first with the Hohem. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. This is the maximum brightness in the cool temperature. We can go ahead and lower that brightness to the lowest amount and then back up to the highest amount. And we can also change the color temperature. All right, there we go. So this is a warmer temperature, which personally suits my skin tone and my background a little bit better. So this is the maximum in warm, and this is the lowest amount in warm. Next up, let's do a fill light test with the DJI. So we're gonna go ahead and turn it on. So this also does have a cool and a warm color temperature, but I personally like the warm color temperature, so I'm gonna stick with that. And we can control the brightness using the wheel on the handle of the gimbal. And so this is the maximum brightness here. Then we're gonna go down to the lowest amount of brightness. And finally, let's test out the fill light on the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro. So this new AI tracker actually has the fill light built in, so you can use this instead of the fill light that comes with the combo package. And so I'm gonna go ahead and turn that light on. There we go. So this is, I think, the lowest brightness. We can go even brighter. Yep, so that's the lowest, and that is the brightest. And again, I personally like the warmer fill light, but we can switch it over to a cooler temperature if you prefer that instead. Now, the final usage of the DJI multifunctional module for the OM7 and 7P is to allow for Bluetooth connection to the DJI Mic Mini wireless microphones, to the gimbal, and thus your phone. Right now, that only works with the DJI Mic Mini, but this is important because if you try to Bluetooth connect these microphones to your phone, the audio quality is really not very good. This is a sound test using the DJI Mic Mini connected wirelessly via Bluetooth to the DJI OM7's multifunctional module. So this is what it sounds like. What's nice is now if I have the tracking enabled, the gimbal will track me as I'm walking around, and I can also use my wireless mic. So if I'm further away like this, I can still be heard. If I'm hiding behind something even, it'll sound like I'm right in front of the camera, even though I'm not, as long as I'm using this wireless mic. And as a baseline test, this is what happens if I'm not using any wireless microphone at all. You can see that I still have the tracking through the gimbal, but the audio, definitely not so good. Now, even though the Hohem and the Insta360 gimbals do not allow for Bluetooth connecting wireless mics to the gimbal, you can still insert the physical wireless mic receiver of some of these microphones on the phone and easily balance them on the gimbal. Specifically, this works really well with the DJI Mic Mini receiver as well as the Rode wireless micro receiver. In terms of battery life, all of these gimbals have built-in batteries that cannot be removed, but they can be recharged via USB-C. The DJI and the Insta have 10-hour operating time, and they can also be used as battery banks to recharge your phone or other devices. But the Hohem does have the longest operating time of 13 hours, but in my experience, I cannot use it as a battery bank to recharge my devices. So in conclusion, all of these gimbals are quite similar, but they also have their differences. So which one is best for you really depends on your preferences as well as possibly your budget. I didn't talk price yet, but all of these gimbals are well under $200. And the DJI OM7s, there are 2 of them. You might notice I did talk about both of them in this video. If you want to know more about how exactly they compare, I do have a dedicated video down below. But in short, the OM7 is the cheapest of the 2, but it comes with the restriction of not having an extendable center column like the 7P does, and it also does not come with this multifunctional module, although it is compatible with it, you just have to buy it separately. So this is going to be the cheaper of the DJI gimbals here. Meanwhile, the Hohem is usually $159, but it can be as low as $129 if you get it on sale, while the Flow 2 Pro is $159, so a little bit more expensive just for the base model of the Flow 2 Pro. But besides price, some other things that might factor into your decision include if you want to use the DJI Mic Mini in particular and connect it wirelessly. If so, then you're going to want to go with a DJI gimbal, specifically one that comes with that multifunctional module. So I ended up having to slightly revise my conclusion here because right after I filmed it, Insta360 released this brand new physical tracking module for the Flow 2 Pro. So using it, you can now get tracking in third-party apps, similar to how the DJI and the Hohem gimbals work. Before this tracker came out, I was going to say that the biggest con to using the Flow 2 Pro was not having this tracker. But now that it is out, I can say with confidence that the Flow 2 Pro is my personal favorite smartphone gimbal of the bunch, mainly because of its robust AI tracking modes, including auto zoom and multi-person tracking, which you can now do in third-party apps with this tracker, and also being able to do a full 360 pan. It's the only gimbal here that can do all of these things. It also has the most robust built-in mini tripod and the sleekest design, so it's pretty much a no-brainer for me. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments down below. Which of these 3 gimbals do you like the best and why? Thank you so much for watching, and again, if you want to see dedicated reviews of these gimbals, I'll leave those videos down below, and please consider using my affiliate links for your next purchase to help support the channel. I'll see you in the next video.